noticed that they quoted in the release post on Facebook, they said that you were a disruption to the culture. I kind of wanted to ask, what was the work culture? What was the culture they were referring to?
So I think the culture, we have a lot of good staff there, but everybody kind of keeps their head down because they're not wanting to go against the grain. There's an individual in the organization that it's kind of their way or the highway, and it's not always based on statute or facts. And department heads came to me, and outside agencies came to me, and they just when they get the answer no, and they know that's not the correct answer, they become disgruntled. So I picked up on that very early. I went to the mayor about it and had discussions, and it was almost like offensive that I was bringing this up and talking about it.
Wow. And how did you get informed that you were being relieved of your duties?
So the day after the election, I'd worked on the next upcoming agenda that morning. I was doing some things with the contract with the water plant consultant, other things on the agenda. I was kind of diligently working, and I went out front and I saw a council member I've only seen twice since I've been here, and I said hello, and they walked through, and then they said, "Oh, the mayor's here." And so I was summoned to go back to their office, and I walked in, and the council member and the mayor were sitting there, and they asked me to have a seat, and they handed me this letter, and they said, "You need to read this." They didn't talk to me, and so I read the letter, and I was a little taken back. I didn't expect that. I've actually had to do that to numerous employees, so I know what it's like to have to sever employment with someone. Usually that's based on information and a plan, and consulting with them, giving them direction. Right. I never received that except for the interactions I had directly with the mayor.
Okay.
So this council member that was in there had actually had minimal discussions except for my interview, which is part of the problem. Our job is very engaging and communication, so communication is a two-way street.
Right.
So yeah, I read the letter. I was a little shaky,
I bet.
a little shocked, and also a little relieved. When it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit. The reason for me it wasn't a good fit is when you see obvious issues and concerns, normally I can just address those. In this situation, and as an administrator, not a manager, it was kind of a different role for me to basically have to inform the mayor, and he would decide, which is a little different than being a manager. And a lot of the decisions that I gave him, he became angry, disgruntled at me. The last 3 to 4 weeks, I didn't have any spoken communication. I would send him updates and information that he needed, and I wouldn't even get, thanks for the information. I received it.
Is that unusual for a city administrator?
It was unusual here because we had good communication back and forth, and I could tell something wasn't right. Some of those things come back obviously to me, calling out an employee that this employee had taken 2 weeks off for turkey season. They were in the office intermittently, a little bit here or there, but then when I got their time cards, it said they had worked the full 80 hours.
Oh, wow.
So that was a problem. This person had been out for 10 to 12 weeks the previous winter, but yet without the carryover policies, we don't have a carryover policy for the city, but they had 180 hours of carryover vacation.
Okay.
And had been out for numerous weeks. And so, I guess, one of the things, I've got some statements and items. Nothing kills a great employee faster than allowing bad behavior and tolerating behaviors by someone in that position or any position to get away with things and not be accountable.
Yeah.
So when I went to the mayor with that, he was upset with me. This employee worked for me. So, I had not been here. They went without a manager for about 1.5 years.
Right.
And then to come in and say, hey, this person is not doing things properly, it was frustrating because for me, I've been in communities and bigger cities where when you start addressing behaviors and, being out, this employee for this first several weeks would not come in before 10 o'clock. I didn't know if they were sick or they had appointments.
Right.
They just kind of nonchalantly were allowed to do whatever. And now that they work for me, I said, that's not normal behavior. You need to let me know. I had have a conversation with her and the mayor.
Wow.
And the next day I got, calendars. It was pretty good for about 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But then it rescinded back in, and it's, it had been that way for a year or two.
Right.
So the culture was, it was acceptable behavior, even though it isn't. For me to step in and start, writing someone up and documenting and being really kind of over the top,
Mm-hmm.
it creates a hostile work environment.
Right.
And I do not want to be, when the mayor makes the decision, everybody works for the mayor in this situation, including me. I don't want to address an employee that's been permitted to have bad behavior.
Right.
But I did bring it to the mayor's attention, and nothing was
It
done
wasn't
about it.
received.
So that's concerning.
Alrighty. And you said there were no signs or warnings prior to your being relieved. There was no meetings, no.
No, so two of the council members and the mayor interviewed all of the department heads,
Mm-hmm.
which is small. We only have 5 total.
Yeah.
So they interviewed me last. I was at a training or out of the office the Friday they did all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I interviewed with them. I told them the same things I told the mayor alone. And then, these other department heads talked to me, so they had told me, yeah, we confirmed what you said to them as well. So it's hard when everybody's kind of united and you have an individual or some problems, and that problem all focuses around one person, to not hit that head on and address the issue.
Yeah.
So there was some awareness that I was pretty acutely aware that my directions and professionalism in trying to bring these things out and get them corrected was not getting followed through on. And so when that's the culture and the understanding,
Yeah.
it's really hard when your job is to give recommendations and recommend change, but then they're like, yeah, we're not gonna do that. It's not a good place to be in my role.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I go back to fit. It is all about fit. I know they had never had a certified professional manager here before.
Mm-hmm.
So when you come in and try to give them those astute, here's our code of ethics, here's recommendations. I gave several recommendations, like the city is still on a cash accrual basis.
Mm-hmm.
It's not unusual for small budgets and small entities to do that, but within our own building, the utility uses Tyler software, which is a software for accounting.
Yeah.
And to have that in our own building and not use that for payroll and our AP and all of the finances, you could do budget in it. So I'm trained in Tyler. My last job, we had like 600 employees.
Oh, wow.
And so our payroll and our 2 HR people use that. So I kind of jokingly told some of the internal staff, like the GM with the utility, I was like, I could probably come do your payroll in the utility side, but I have no ability to do ours because it's all spreadsheets and hand done and goes to an accounting firm. And so those are the kind of recommendations and changes I felt like would be receptive and take us to the next level.
Yeah, and it sounds like all of that is very things that I know when we had our meeting last Friday, there were a lot of things that they were kind of pointing out as, oh, well, we're understaffed and this is something we can't do and da-da-da-da. And it kind of sounds like that's one of those little improvements they could make that would make things run a lot smoother. Were there other things like that?
Sure, and that's my role, is to come in, do an assessment, kind of figure out, what's running well, what do we kind of let be for now?
Yeah.
What do we need to enhance? What are things we could do to make the city grow, right? So my background is more economic development, commercialization, bringing in builders, bringing in commercial. And so one of those things was our municipal code is not online.
Yes.
And it's like a $238 fee to the community code and the company that does it.
Yeah.
And the mayor, I presented that to him, he wouldn't sign it. And
wow.
We have our digital code. I know that it's copyrighted and you can't just cut and paste it onto our website because there's hosting. But yeah, we don't give it out. So I know like you came to our building and they told you to go to the library and look at the municipal code there, which is, it would just be so much easier to have those things. I'm used to coming from entities with everything's digitized.
Yes.
So like our board packets, our meeting agendas, our minutes, all of those things are readily discoverable on navigating the website. And bringing up those things here, it's almost like a secret. Like you can't see the minutes.
Yeah.
The agenda from the last meeting last night was posted yesterday. These are statutory things with the Secretary of State that are violations.
Concerns.
And so we hired, right before about the same time I got there, we hired a deputy clerk that came from the state's offices. She retired from the state. She's very adept at electronics and that type of culture that I'm familiar with. And so I think together we had a lot of vision for upgrading and making these better.
Yeah.
But then it came to the mayor.
Somebody needs to sign off.
And well, we don't have budget for, spending on that. And it was weird because we still were paying an employee that left in September is still coming and being paid travel and staying in a hotel occasionally and still getting a temporary payment.
Right.
And here it is a year later.
So is it in your belief that, there have been a lot of complaints of things not being accessible on the website and things like that? Is it in your belief that the city could do that if there was just an attempt to do so?
Oh, sure. I was a certified municipal clerk in Monument, Colorado. It was one of the fastest growing communities in Colorado. It's where the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs is at. My job was, as the city clerk, was to do the minutes, to do the liquor licenses, to do the board packets. So in the old days, I would do board packets and have 30, 40 items and hand stuff them, and we delivered them. We would send it by email to the press. So the couple of cities and entities that I've worked for after that, it's gotten so simple. We have agenda distribution groups, right? Like an email, so when the agenda packet's ready, we just send it to everybody, the news, citizens, requesters. It's very transparent.
Yeah.
And I'm coming from a discipline and a training of, if you want to, you can go down there and request credit card receipts. You can request specific emails that are not, if you want to see all the emails between me and the department head or myself and the mayor, you can come in and formally request those and they should be provided. There might be some cost, but my way of looking at that is if you can put the agendas and the minutes and things on the website, it keeps our staff from having to research them, have to copy them.
Yeah.
It just makes for better interaction with our citizens and our customers.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned us coming up there, and we were sent to the library when we were looking for specific city ordinances, and even when we got to that code book, there were just ordinance codes. There were no ordinances, there was no way to decode those ordinance codes, nothing, and so our concern with the accessibility, I think, mirrored a lot of the residents' accessibility concerns. And in your opinion, do you feel that that's an accessible process to not have it readily available at the city hall?
So for me, I was pretty new. They just transitioned. I've been in larger entities and they don't use agenda software.
Oh, wow.
Counties, large county, cities that are 25,000 plus. Our agenda was put out by our city clerk. Our staff would compile it. It would be scanned into one PDF, and then it would be dispersed. So it's kind of unique. I'm not sure. I think the FA Bank there had some, and their IT had some influence on them using that. It's kind of ahead of the game for someone that small to use that software. But the problem is that the software they had was not supported any longer, so they were converting. Yeah. So I had never been on the old software, and I couldn't find packets. I couldn't find minutes. And if you were to ask me, I would have to refer you to the city clerk. Okay. And so I couldn't even research those internally, being the head of the agency. So I'm sure that those things, they archive them and they don't always transfer. I'm sure that could be available, but even for myself, I didn't have access. So it would all be kind of bottlenecked through one individual to try to provide those requests. And
so you feel it could have been accessible, it just simply wasn't?
They have 2 or 3 people in the administrative offices, and I feel like that would be an easy task to get those archived and put out.
Alrighty. And let me just look through my little questions here. I was going to ask, do you feel the timing was a little precarious? I was going to ask, do you feel that your abrupt termination had anything to do with our meeting on Friday?
One would never know, right? I mean, I kind of got the taste of that. I think that the election was critically important, the transportation tax. So for a town with a $4.5 million budget, a $650,000, $700,000 tax revenue, had it not passed, that would have been crippling, right? Because all of the discussions about, projects and wading pools and tennis courts and baseball fields, all of that would have been transferred to road maintenance. because that's a priority to keep the roads safe.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very good that it passed. I think that a lot of this, I don't have any idea, I haven't really been informed when they had a meeting about this.
Mm-hmm.
There would have been a special meeting called, which there was no notice.
Mm-hmm.
I still have not been provided the vote. It says contractually it would be a 2/3 vote.
Yeah.
I know 2 of the people on council were supportive, and it would shock me if they would have voted for this. But nonetheless, I'm not there. It's probably a good thing fit-wise. I really want to be somewhere where I can make a difference and work collaborative, be collaborative with my council and my citizens.
Yeah.
And it was challenging for me, even meeting with you in the press,
Yeah.
to kind of sit back and listen to the answers. I am responsible and have to be truthful. It's hard to sit in meetings and kind of know that maybe that's not the way I would do things, or the way we, to provide recommendations that haven't been taken.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying those answers are wrong, it's just
Yeah.
it's just maybe not the way I would answer them. And I like to lead with diligence, expertise, try to make things excellent, not just do the minimum standard.
Yeah.
And I have, Missouri's a different state. I've worked in other states, Colorado, Alaska, North Carolina. Those are very stringent states with the sunshine laws there,
Yes.
providing things. It's very different, whereas here in Missouri, you're not required to let people just come and have open public comments.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good thing to do. I think that creates, a method for citizens to give feedback in what we do as public, so everything we do should have some kind of call on it, some kind of transparency. So to totally not do that, and then to have requests given to you, and then you say you can't talk about that because it's not on the agenda, they have a right to do that. I'm not supportive of that. And so that was where the fit and the culture, I felt like, as a contracted employee, I'm gonna do my best, and they make a choice to
Right.
sever that contract.
And so you mentioned, kind of touching back on maybe some of the answers they gave us weren't entirely accurate or not the way you would have done it. Can you recall any specific answers or moments they gave us that kind of had you hesitating?
Well, right as you showed up, the police chief picked me up, and we were catching up. We had not talked for the week. It was Friday, and he was busy. I was doing things, so we were connecting. As we were driving around, there was an APB for someone that had broken into the high school. I don't know if you knew about that
I think
case.
I did hear about that, yeah.
So they actually saw the individual. We started looking, and it was kind of weird. I wouldn't normally be involved that deeply with those types of things. So when I got back, I'm like, wow, they're still here. And it was like, I probably should have come up myself and said, hey, I'm the manager, but instead, I'm like, where's the clerk? Where's the mayor? I hadn't really been involved in any of that communication. So when I came back, I said, well, here's my card, and here's the mayor's card. They're gonna, for one, I didn't want to speak around the mayor.
Yeah.
I don't really need to be the spokesperson on a decision they made back in December or didn't make with budget about the wading pools. I did get people asking me in May what's going on with the wading pools, so I put together a press release and came forward and shared that and provided that for the mayor. They had me put my name on it, which is interesting, right? Because you prepare things for the city. It's not necessarily me as the spokesperson. I think that was good. The citizens obviously were not happy with hearing that information, but at least they were being informed.
Giving them something.
And I don't know what the decision is even at this point. I mean, it's there's issues with the current wading pools. It is a financial decision to be budgeted. They don't have budget this year. So I think being able to say, hey, there's no budget this year, it'll be a later decision. I do like that I saw on the agenda last night that they are gonna have a discussion about that.
Yes.
So maybe change is happening, and I think that's positive.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing. I hope that's kind of the way they go.
Yeah, they did end up scheduling a meeting, and they did inform the public that there would be guidelines on how they were allowed to comment and things. So I think people are still a little hesitant. They're worried about those guidelines being a little restrictive, but they're willing to give it a shot. So hopefully it's a step in the right direction. But yeah, I kind of circling back, I want to make sure we touch on this, but during our meeting on Friday, I did notice there were a couple of moments that kind of had you glancing, and so I was wondering if you wanted to elaborate on any of those moments where maybe
Well,
they weren't fully
You know, I
honest.
mean, so I know what I directed our staff member to tell you.
Yes.
And what you reported hearing is not what I had her share.
That's
So
what
so
it
I mean,
was.
I don't wanna get into what that person may or may not have said,
Right.
but my directive was, you know, tell them that I'm not available, which at that time, it wasn't a good time,
Yeah.
and plus I wanted to meet with the mayor to know, hey, if you want me to speak about this, I need to be prepared, I need to be prepped, I don't
That's
wanna
fair.
just go ad lib.
Mm-hmm.
You definitely don't wanna say things that isn't in line with the council's decisions.
Right.
And also, I feel like that would be something he should be owning and discussing, right?
Mhm.
So I feel like that was the appropriate thing in this situation. I apologize that you were there so long and kinda had the runaround, and I don't know, I feel like the employee was kinda dodging out on you.
Mhm.
Maybe not, I don't know, I don't wanna question that,
Right.
but I feel like telling them whatever they came up with to tell you,
Mhm.
that's not important, but I feel like that's not how I would do things, so
Right.
I don't know if that's accurate or not accurate.
And when Trey and I were up there for that 3-2 meeting, were there any moments during that meeting that you felt they weren't being fully honest or kind of fully open and transparent?
I mean, you know, that's kind of one of the things why I say it wasn't a good fit for me here, is I'm used to being in that, hey, everything we do is transparent.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's, like, this may not be a personnel action,
Yeah.
you don't always talk about the specifics about personnel activities and actions.
Mm-hmm.
I think, you know, other than that, personnel, hiring, terminations, that kind of discipline, there's very little that isn't public.
Yeah.
Land negotiations, I mean, they have this, you know, the Sunshine Law and how they state those things. I'm accustomed in other states to not just putting personnel negotiations. In other states, we have to put, like, you know, the statutory reference, it's about land negotiation or a specific employee's name. And the requirements in Missouri are different,
Right.
so they're very broad and vague.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just because they're broad and vague doesn't mean that you can't, you know, divulge information that the public,
Yeah.
it's a
Create that
public entity,
trust.
so, you
Yeah.
know, there really isn't a whole lot that, we have a budget that
Mm-hmm.
kind of dictates what we do and can't do, and it can be changed. And I think that was kind of one of the things I felt was a little hard for me, and the fit was it's very rigid.
Yeah.
We do things the way we've done them here for a long, long time,
Mm-hmm.
and those might not be best practices.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, for me, I go somewhere looking at how can I kind of raise the bar and make things better.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there really was an opportunity for me to do that here. I feel like, you know, we had 2 weeks into it, we had a professional retreat with SGR, a professional from their organization. It's pretty expensive, it's like $5,000.
I remember hearing about that.
And it was actually excellent.
Mm-hmm.
They brought in the department heads, and the input that I got from the council were all things that I outlined that I was trying to work on. They want to talk about communication and putting information on the website. So it's ironic that those are the things I feel like they put in the letter to me
Mm-hmm.
that weren't being met, because those were things I was working on that I was getting resistance
Right.
about.
And still complaints within the
Yeah,
community.
so, I mean, you know, when an employee's released, the easy thing to do is publicly say, oh yeah, you know, they were doing great and da-da-da-da, but in reality, I'm like, I was being professional and doing what I'm supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need to have a reason, it's a contractual employee, so if the fit's not good. I just say, you know, did they notice the meeting, what was the vote, those are things that due process really is
Right.
important in those things. So me, when I do personnel actions, I document, you know, we can't always talk about the matters,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not hard to show the process, right? It's not hard to say, oh, this is the date we did the meeting,
Mm-hmm.
these are the people that voted. And it's hard to just be handed a letter that's kind of insulting
Yeah.
and not have any understanding of how it happened.
Was there anything they said to you afterwards, like as you read that letter and you're shaking and you go to
Not
ask?
really, it's, you know, on those sides, you don't, as the employer, you don't wanna say too much. I did
Mm-hmm.
tell that council member that, you know, I've worked for 14 mayors or council people and
Mhm.
chairmen, different heads of organizations. You know, some places you get 2 or 3 mayors if you're there. Some other
Right.
place I've been 7, 8 years. And I said, this is the only place where I've actually had a mayor scream and yell at me and belittle me and treat
Wow.
me like a child.
Was that a common occurrence?
It happened a few times. I think he was upset.
Mhm.
And I did make the statement to the paper that I
Yeah.
almost walked out. it's not professional for me just to walk away, but at the same time, it's, you know, when it's hostility and it's not comfortable, I'm used to trying to be very approachable, very honest, very amenable. My job, hey, the council says go do this, I may not agree, as long as it's lawful and that's the direction I'm given, that's what I'm supportive of, and I get my team to be supportive of the decision. So it's a little bit against my personal ethics. So I mean, at the end of the day, I think the whole reason I'm doing this, for number one, is to hopefully it gets fixed and things improve.
Yeah.
Because I do think the citizens and the community needs to have, you know, a really good, excellent government representing them and doing good things, because it's a great community. They have great staff, they have great people. Every organization has a few people and a few problems, right? And it's a methodology to fix that and make it better.
Right. And so, as you're kind of, I guess, leaving your position in the Macon government system, what are some concerns you're kind of leaving behind for?
Well, obviously the transparency, you know, for one, it's against state statute to not post the agenda in a certain timeline.
Yes.
As you've seen, that hasn't been happening.
Yes.
The minutes, the data, I would personally like to see them go with Tyler software and do things that are proficient and economical and cost effective for the city. I would like them to see, it's hard with small budgets, the disproportionality of some of the staff, of what they get paid. That's a concern, because that's my realm, is personnel and comp studies and doing all that. So I mean, it's hard to come in brand new and tell them there's equity issues, but those are things I think that need to be addressed for the long term.
Yeah, and you kind of touched on this in your newspaper article and a couple times here in terms of a limited budget and things. You mentioned that they were losing some grants and some money opportunities just by not filling out applications and things like that. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit? Well,
so the biggest one was the SAFER grant. A year ago it was a January deadline. So the federal, it's FEMA, they changed it to a July deadline. This funds an extra fire position. It pays for like the first 2 years, and then it kind of weans down. It's kind of like the COPS grants used to be. But because it wasn't budget time, it's not our normal budget time. The fire chief had worked on it, prepared it, I reviewed it, I felt like it looked great, I put it on the agenda. In other bigger cities where I'd worked, the mayor didn't always get real involved in the agenda. They would kind of review it and then would present it at the meeting. Well, here I presented it, and the clerk and the mayor, he just yanked it off. He got very upset. We're not putting this on. And I felt like it's not really my place or the mayor's place to determine if that's a yes or no. It should be council making that decision. But he kind of unilaterally made that decision.
And so it never even made it to agenda just because he said no?
Correct. And then the part that was hard for me was he sent me an email that directed me to tell the fire chief and police chief to knock it off, quit asking for funding, quit asking for extra staffing. Even though there were cost savings in the budget with the police department. I felt like in a normal situation in other cities I've been, I could just make that with the police department head decision. Hey, we had a vacancy, we've got positions to fund this position, let's go ahead and use our budget for that. That would be a managerial decision, not a council decision.
And using that fire station proposal that was put together and rejected, would that have used city budgets? That was just for a grant?
So long term it would impact after 26.
Okay.
But for now it's, you know,
it was just money.
It was ironic because the fire department had diminished their staffing, which has caused them to be one person short, and they can't have a complete schedule. So all of the people that work for the fire department, most fire departments, if you're full-time or not, they usually have multiple jobs. So not all firemen, I mean bigger cities, you know, Kansas City or somewhere like that, they might be a full-time fire captain or something. But a lot of places they work in other entities. So by not having a solid schedule and ongoing rotation, not being consistent, those people can't have a second job. So I felt like that was a big issue for the fire chief, was very upset. And he, you know, I don't want to encourage him to be undermining and circumvent the mayor's authority, but at the same time I felt like that should have been something that was brought forward, and it wasn't.
And I find that really interesting because I know in our Friday meeting with the clerk, the mayor, and yourself, one of the big points they made was the benefits they had given to the fire station and to the police station and how they had been supporting that. And so I think it's really interesting to hear that there was always more that could be done. It just kind of wasn't. So
Yeah, I mean,
interesting.
that's challenging, but then, you know, the mayor had sent me an email,
Mhm.
and, it, you know, all of our email, unless it's with the attorney, is generally discoverable.
Mhm.
So you could go request those emails.
And find them.
And the mayor said, you know, you need to tell the chiefs to quit pushing these issues. And
Mhm.
so I just forwarded his email to them, and that really enraged him, which is,
Really.
on a professional level, if it was not a confidential email, you know, like if the mayor wanted me not to do things,
Mhm.
a phone call would be appropriate, but sending it in an email
Right.
that's discoverable, I said, I didn't want to decipher his intent,
Right.
and I shared that with them, and he was really pissed about it, but it's hard for me as the head of an agency to tell my staff members, hey, just back off on doing your job.
You're not allowed to make
It's
proposals.
hard to explain that to them because
Yeah.
it doesn't really make sense.
No. Especially when they're just proposals, like, and I feel that
Yeah,
is a
I mean,
huge part
city
of-
council could have said, yeah, no, we don't wanna fund this.
Yeah, to not
Um,
even let it get to agenda for discussion.
But to
or
just
anything.
not do it, the deadline was like July 3rd, so
Yeah.
this would have been the May meeting.
And are there other occurrences of things where there are clear signs of possible benefit for the city that have just been not even allowed on the
I mean,
agenda?
you know, there's always things like that, but at
Okay.
the same token, I think the amount of time I was there, it's the assessment and doing those, I take some pride in coming in,
Mhm.
they actually got, the group had been working on Main Street, Missouri,
Yeah.
and so they had to have a support letter, a letter from the city.
Mhm.
It's not obligatory, it's just a letter of intent.
Mhm.
And this was probably the first month I was there. So as the city administrator, I have authority to do that as a letter of intent. This isn't obligating funds. So I signed it and they submitted it, and that was not a good decision
Not
on my
well
part, I
received.
guess, because it was, I feel like that's one of the best things during my tenure that will happen here.
Mhm.
Because they're gonna be working with, you know, the state and they bring a lot of tools and resources to help them with their downtown guidelines, drop business. So I was really excited about getting that opportunity. And the council did subsequently approve a support, but they didn't want to pay any of the funding required. So they made the
Money.
downtown effort go out and fundraise,
Mhm.
which I think is fine.
Yeah.
But I do feel like that was a good decision, but I faced a lot of opposition by getting that implemented.
Interesting. Okay.
So, but yeah, no, I think that's kind of it.
Okay. And in terms of the whole wading pool fiasco, I know this has been a huge controversy and it's been a very big blowout within the city and things. I kind of wanted to get your opinion on how that's been handled. You have kind of the inner side of it, and of course we've seen the public side of it.
Sure.
So just in your opinion, how have they been handling that?
So you know, I would say in what I know about it,
Mhm.
that the decision to not open them this year was made at budget time last year.
Yeah.
So that would have been sometime between September and December.
Mhm.
And I think, you know, the budget process is public.
Mhm.
People could go. I don't know how participatory it was. I wasn't
Right.
there. But I think that when they put the budget out, not everybody reads the budget.
Mhm.
I think that when we got to the point where I did the press release, that's because we had people asking. My personal opinion is, our engineer looked at it. I had talked to our insurance people about it. They have issues with the fencing,
Mhm.
the slopes, the ADA compliance, getting in and out. It's not an amenity that meets today's standards.
Yeah.
It's almost 100 years old, I think.
Yeah.
At the same time, budgets are small,
Mhm.
so I think, you know, they're having a meeting. I think looking at, you know, do they replace it? Do they put another amenity in the park? I think those are decisions that they have to make with the community and prioritize their budgets. So for me, it's like I don't really have a stake in this game anymore,
Mhm.
but I feel like they made that determination to support the staff increases that were really overdue. The staff increases they did to most of the departments last year were significant.
Mhm.
So to fund those, they had to make that kind of a cutoff decision.
Change.
If I had been here, I probably would have recommended that. Does that make sense? But I
Yes,
would have
yeah.
liked to advocate for, hey, we're not gonna be doing this.
Mhm.
I think it's good to be open and honest. People might not like it.
But
But at least
you're
if you
open.
educate them, hey, this is what we did, this is why,
Share that process.
and then maybe we'll revisit how we address that, which they are.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the right way to do it.
Yeah. I also wanted to ask, I've seen, you know, in terms of once the news of your removal had been shared and things, people were kind of on the fence of how they were feeling about that, whether they thought that was a good choice or a poor choice of the city, neither
Sure.
here nor there. But there were people bringing up the fact that you had been removed from a few positions in the past, and so I kind of wanted
Sure.
to give you a chance to maybe explain what was the
Sure.
basis for that, for anyone who may question, well, maybe it was a good choice because he's been removed in the past. And
Yeah,
things
so
like that.
so some of those are big cities.
Mhm.
Obviously, I'm in a career search again. I'm not retired. I still
Mhm.
need to work. So it's important to always be honest and
Yeah.
truthful about that. Some of those things in other cities have NDAs on them because they were personnel related.
Right.
I could tell you, like in North Carolina, the HR director and the assistant were investigated by ISS Agency, which is a
Oh, wow.
big national firm.
Yeah.
They spent 12 weeks and $50,000 of city money, and both employees resigned. The problem for me was the vice mayor was the sister of the HR director, and you can read the lines on that. So,
Mhm.
you could call the mayor and see the people and talk to people there, and it's hard to not tell your story at all in those
Right.
situations. But if I got any more explicit than that, I would be violating North Carolina statutes.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's hard, going to a next job. Managers, I gave you some resources with
Yes.
Joseph Turner. Managers, when you do the right thing and you act honestly and with integrity, a lot of times we can't talk about the
You don't sit
situations.
around long.
So it's really hard to go to that next job. I kind of would say being in this role and as a manager,
Mhm.
I've been married to my wife for 30 plus years and love her to death, but it would be like if you were a single person and you're dating someone that's like, oh, this person was divorced 6 times.
Right.
And you're like, what?
It's a little
That's kind of
scary.
like, well, what was the situation?
Right.
We're all 6 interesting, and
Mhm.
like for me, the last 3 jobs had not had professional managers in those roles.
Yeah.
So coming in and trying to escalate and lift things to the best standards, it's not always an easy task.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a give and take on doing what we can incrementally. But I think for me, it's going to have to be more wisely deciding where I go next.
Yeah.
Having that fit is really important, and for me, it's about being professional at all times, and even having this discussion goes against my
Yeah.
personal thoughts of integrity. I don't like to talk about that, but then I guess if you look at it, I don't want someone else that might be a professional manager that would come in, and
Go in
it's
blind.
been cyclical.
Yeah.
So like I would hope that the cycle stops and
Yeah.
that they figure out what they want, because I feel like what was given to me in the directives at my hiring,
Mhm.
I was trying to achieve, and maybe that's not really what they want. Maybe they
Mhm.
don't really want those things. So I think it's important to be honest in that dialect and say, this is what we want done, because I feel like I was doing that.
Alright. And just to give you a chance, it seems like you got
Sure.
a lot there. Is there anything you would like to explicitly share that you feel is relevant to at least the Macon community and the people who have been feeling like they're left in the dark? I know you expressed sharing that sentiment of feeling like you don't understand what's going on and being in the dark, and so do
And I-
they, so.
Yeah, and I think just that comes back to that not having good communication, right? Just be clear and honest and say it. It's not a big mystery. I think for me it was a little bit of a shock, but at the same time, like I knew things were not where they should have been,
Right.
and I tried to fix that and work on that. So I think ultimately we all want to be in a place where we're able to contribute and make a difference. It doesn't always mean we get a lot of applause and accolades and recognition,
Mhm.
but I don't think as a city manager that's not why we do it. It's about our teams, it's about our community. So it's deeper than just about me.
Mhm.
So I think it's important that hopefully that changes moving forward. Hopefully they do produce things within the statutes and post their agendas and do things according to the process the way they should.
And you've kind of mentioned this now a few times of maybe what they're saying they want is not what they really feel or what they really want. What do you feel it is that they are working towards or want?
That's hard.
In your opinion?
A lot of smaller communities fear change.
Mhm.
Without new investment and new housing and new business, your community's dying. There's no such thing as just we're great where we are.
Mhm.
There has to be, just like vehicles, right? Like if you never have a new car come to the city,
Right.
everything's gonna get aged and not be in a good place. So you need some kind of constant, gentrification,
Yeah.
new things, tax base. Without that growth, your taxes get more expensive.
Mhm.
So it's also kind of offsetting the cost of living for residents if it is positive growth.
Yeah.
But it also has to fit what you want in that community.
Yeah. And do you have any words of advice to the people of Macon who are kind of trying to get more involved in the political side of things so that they can make these changes?
Well, you know, it's easy to criticize people in elected positions,
Mhm.
but not everybody wants to step up and make a difference and volunteer their time.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, if you talk to your representatives, I think, you know, for me, it's about engaging, you know, your, not necessarily the staff, but engaging your elected officials, you know, go into the meetings and having a platform to discuss things is part of the public process. And I think hopefully that is improved in the near future. I think, you know, one of the new council members and I went to the municipal league training, and the mayor, trying to think of which city he was from, it was one of the bigger cities. So he was the municipal league, he'd been the municipal league president. He talked about when you have open comments, and you know, I've been doing this for a lot of time in a lot of cities, and some places they give you 3 minutes at the beginning. That's pretty much the standard.
Yeah.
Some places do 3 minutes in the beginning and 5 minutes at the end. And one of my cities, I had 75 minutes every meeting for several years where we heard about, you know, your bad neighbors, this sewer treatment plant is awful and it stinks. And it didn't, but that was, you know, they have a platform to vocalize. Sometimes that can get out of control and be, you know, as long as they're not talking about our specific staff members and you don't usually respond, right? Part of my job would be to take those comments, research them, and get back to those people. So you're not actively responding in these meetings, but opening a platform for discussion where they could say, hey, you know, we don't like not having the waiting pools. All right, well then staff can research that and give the pros and cons.
And why do you feel that the city of Macon kind of declines to go that route of having that public accessibility?
I mean, it's not that they decline that, it's people wrote in requests. So if you read their policy on the door, you can go to the meeting. Before the meeting starts, you can sign up on the sign-up sheet, and it's restricted to only talk about items on the agenda. So I encourage citizens, if there's things on the agenda you want to discuss, go use that right. They gave things the Tuesday prior, they went to the city clerk, and it says the administrator or the mayor may make a determination to talk about them, and the policy for me was, I really didn't have a say in that, yes or no.
Okay.
The policy was given to me like, these aren't agenda items, call them and tell them no, which should usually be the clerk's job, but I was delegated doing that fun task, which I'm okay with taking that.
And if the agenda is the only thing that people are allowed to sign up to discuss, and the process of getting something put on the agenda is very regulated, how are residents expected to kind of make use of that and get involved?
Right. Yeah, so that's bad, right? I mean, so when that elected official was at the training with me, he heard, you know, best practices are to do that. Best practices are to give them 2 minutes, or if you only want a minute. And I know that he approached, you know, he needs to step up again and say, hey, we would like to change this. I think change is coming. Hopefully it's inevitable. Yeah. But I think, you know, without hearing about it, it's always status quo, right? Like, you can't just keep doing the things that we're doing wrong or that aren't good. We need to make them better and improve them. So hopefully they do make that determination. I mean, council members and elected officials, they rotate out. So it's hard as a staff member, you know, you usually try to work with the group you have. At the time. And those change, so that's part of the difficulty of being a manager. Most of my positions and the changes around my career, you asked about that earlier, have generally come around transitions in community and in the council. Yeah. So like I've been in cities where the former council wanted to do parks and ball fields, and then now the new council's elected, and then immediately, oh, we're gonna stop all that work and we're gonna go this direction. And as a manager, we adapt. But I think part of our role is to make it efficient and effective, and it's not good to have the political wind shift. Right. So, but it is, I think if people aren't happy with what they're getting, the best way you could change that is to run yourself or to vote.
Yeah, alrighty. And I kind of have to ask this because it was mentioned in our Friday meeting, but are the door locks on that front of the building, are those electronic locks?
So they have a new system for digital pass locks,
Okay.
but currently the door that you come in and out of, it has a turnkey.
Okay.
So usually when they have closed sessions and things, when
Mhm.
everybody that's not participating, they do
Yes.
lock it behind you.
Okay. I just had to ask because I know they were very adamant in our meeting that that was an electronic lock and they didn't lock the door behind me, and I'm pretty sure.
So no, that the system is not fully functional. They still
Okay.
have to come change some things out and
Okay.
change the back door.
Mhm.
But the finance person for the utility is actually in charge of that for the building.
Oh, okay.
And so that's not been finalized, so the keys and the codes work just by digitally setting a time. We tried to make it work that way,
Mhm.
but they currently have to turn
Have
the
to
key. So they,
manually turn it.
yeah, I after the election, the night of the election, I went up to the building at 7 o'clock
Mhm.
on my run and went in my desk, and it had already been locked.
Uh-huh.
But I would have locked the door because it has to be manually done.
Manually turn. Alrighty. I think, unless there is anything else you'd like to point out from our Friday meeting or make known from the information you brought, I think that wraps up my questions. Trey, you were in that meeting. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
I have a few if you don't mind.
Sure, sure.
Here, I can even come around so you can still focus on the
I'm getting warm.
I know these lights are cooking a little bit.
Yeah. So,
I mean, I kind of went in more detail than I intended to,
That's
but
alright. That's alright.
you're good where you're at. I'm kind of standing over here so that Scott's still in the same
sure,
direction.
sure.
All right, so the questions that I have are, so some of them you may not be able to answer. If you can't, just say,
Okay.
I can't, or I don't know, or I'm not gonna. All that's okay, all
Okay.
right? First question, no, you can leave it on, it's all
Okay.
good.
Continue.
Do you feel that, the mayor and the other employee were intentionally misleading us at any point over the last few months?
You can read into my smile and
Perfect.
answer that.
Okay,
Alright.
that's an answer enough, awesome. Do you feel that the city is currently in violation of sunshine law?
Absolutely.
I know,
On multiple things.
I know we've brought up a few instances, or have brought up, adjacent we've discussed some of those things.
I mean,
Would you be
I
willing
feel
to
like
go into
as a
specifics?
reporter, the community or somebody, even yourselves, I'm not going to do that because of my code of ethics and I take an oath.
Yeah.
Someone should contact the Secretary of State.
Alrighty.
I'm not going to do that, I assure you, but that should happen, and they should look into some of these issues. That will bring immediate change.
Well, I know the previous one, and I know this one too,
Yeah.
so I will
Uh-huh.
reach out. We will get.
It's
to it.
frustrating, right?
Yeah, I bet.
Sorry,
It is.
No, you're good.
Okay, and
Getting
some of this, I'm just going through some of these like more pointed questions
Sure.
that I'm coming up with now that we've had the full-blown conversation. Let's see, I'll ask a personal one of you.
Sure.
Why are you so passionate? Why did you pursue city administrative work?
It's kind of weird. I was in the Navy. I did physical therapy and occupational therapy with stroke patients.
Mm.
So I kind of come from this empathy. I was an athletic trainer in college. I kind of come from that rehab side of things with people, patient care. When I got out of the Navy, I worked for Douglas County Sheriff's Office, and it was, Douglas County was the fastest growing county in the United States, and Castle Rock and all that. We got paid way too much. I got paid more there than I make here
Wow.
in 2000.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
But the problem was, term limits, and our sheriff fired all of us, and it's nepotism is allowed in the sheriff. So that was really my introduction to municipal government and working publicly. Sheriff's office is a little unique in that.
Mhm.
It didn't feel good to know that you're doing a great job and you're just replaceable. But then this is really strange. My wife, after that happened, I was teaching at the university as an adjunct professor, weird. And my wife said, oh, they have a city council position in Monument that you should run for. And I said, are you kidding? No, who would do that? And so I went down there, and there was like 6 or 8 of us. Monument is a pretty affluent community, retired Air Force flag officers. We built a new town hall in 2007 that cost like $6 million. It was about 15,000 square feet. I was like, and people were computing, in the community were complaining. I was like, there's houses a third this size down the street that cost 20 back then. There's $60 million houses there, and most people like me, I was the city clerk and the assistant city manager. My kids got free lunch because of the cost of living, and I didn't get paid enough for my kids to have to pay for school lunch. But I was served on the city council. It's really strange. Monument they had kind of what's going on in Macon. The really weird part was I still worked at the sheriff's office. So September 11th of 2001, we all know what happened that day, was Monument's recall election date. Yeah, in a community of 10,000 people, you had 50 people show up to vote because everybody rushed home to watch the towers and the craziness, right? So our mayor and 3 elected officials were recalled and replaced with people on the ballot from 50 votes.
Wow.
And that's not when I got on. I got on in 2003 so it was really strange. I interviewed, they had orthopedic surgeons and attorneys, and so they're like, why do you want to be on city council? And we're getting interviewed publicly at this, it's an appointment. I wasn't elected at that time. And I said, well, I live here, I have 3 small children in the schools, and my master's in public administration and public management. I feel like I want to get more involved and learn more about the city and what we do and how we make it better. And they selected me, so they had me come up and take the oath and sit down, and it was like, oh, I don't think I expected that. And it was kind of immersed, and we were doing a comprehensive plan. Monument, we tried to put a moratorium on growth, and we had 7 planners. It was nuts. I mean, it's grown 29% a year every year since 1995 till today. It grows about 30% a year every year.
The fact that you still know that knowledge about these
Yeah,
places.
Our demographer. So the interesting thing was, I don't want to talk all night.
You're good.
Yeah.
So when I was serving on the city council, we split the finance director and clerk used to be one position. And I was like, oh, city clerk is actually, it's kind of like county clerk, secretary of state. It's the heart and blood of the community and of the organization.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, I'm really interested, because I was still teaching classes. I didn't really have, benefits. I was like, oh, the city of Monument, I really would like to work here. So I had to resign and step down from my seat on council to apply for the job. And what was really crazy was the city had like 5 internal applicants. It's a lot bigger in Macon. So they had 5 internal applicants, so they're like, well, Scott was on city council, so we need to get an objective group. So it was Catherine Young, the Colorado Springs city clerk. She was the president of the IAMC, which is the International Municipal Clerks Association for the whole world. It was her, Gina Dutcher, who teaches the Clerk Academy in Colorado, Boulder. And then another lady her name is Cindy Morse. She was the Woodland Park city clerk. And these are the 3 top city clerks in the state of Colorado. So when they interviewed us, obviously my education and background, they're like, you should hire Scott. And so I was hired. It was really interesting because for a long time they mentored me. And Colorado has Tabor. It's kind of like Missouri has the amendment where you can't ratchet up and it's very financially restricted. Well, the Tabor amendment was done by Douglas Bruce. Doug Bruce was my county commissioner. Oh. And I presented to him as the city clerk at the El Paso County commissioners meeting, and I said de-Brucing, which he flipped out on me. I was like 28 years old. I was young. Oh, no. I got screamed at. You'll never call it. I learned from some of the best in the industry of being a clerk. So I was a city clerk for 7 or 8 years in Monument. And my boss, that was a city manager, was going through a really bad divorce, and I was her dump all. She would not come to work. She would come to work intoxicated.
Oh.
I was really busy. She treated me poorly, and I said, I'm not the kind of person that throws people under the bus.
Mm.
I'm going to find a new job, and I'm already doing a manager job. The manager job pays double what clerks make. It's a third of the work, but it's a different accountability and responsibility.
Right.
But I'm like, I already know the clerk stuff as well as, and I wanted to be the county clerk for El Paso County, but Wayne Williams was going to run, and he was one of my county commissioners. He was an Air Force grad. There's no way I would have got elected. And so that was my next hope, career-wise. So then he was there for a year, and then he became the Secretary of State for Colorado.
Wow.
And so my career path has always kind of been blocked by like greatness. And I've always kind of gone, wow, maybe I should have done that. And looking in hindsight, you learn a lot about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But working in Monument, it was so fast-paced, so high-level professional. Everybody that was a department head but me was retired. So I just learned a lot from everybody. And then I went to Meeker, Colorado, and my wife, and everybody's like, Meeker, it's a lot like Macon. It's in the White River. It's where the Wilderness Act happened. It's actually almost burned up this last week.
Oh yeah.
And I was there for 3 wildfires and teams, and my father-in-law had been a wildland fire incident commander, so I knew a lot about fire and all that. But I went to Meeker, and you know what made me go there? Because I was interviewing in places like Littleton and big cities.
Yeah.
And I went there because I said, you know, when I interviewed, they made me bring my wife, which was weird.
Yeah.
I had worked in Monument for 4 or 5 different mayors. I had never met any of my elected officials' wives. A bigger community, you know, you don't have a lot of social events necessarily with the mayor. So when I went to Meeker, all of the staff, all of their kids, all of their family, they're all in this basement. And I walked in, and there were 3 candidates. I walked in with my wife, and I'm like, holy smokes, these people really care about who's coming here to run the city.
Yeah.
And I was there for 8 years. I kind of did there's a lot of oil and gas money there.
Mm-hmm.
Everything you could do, we did. Water system, streets, parks, schools. And I was like, we were working with Better City, which is one of the best in the country. We actually recruited them, and I worked with them for 5 or 6 years. And I got to the point my kids were finishing high school and going to college, and we had this huge house, and my job was easy. And I was like, looking back, I'm like, if I had been a little older at the time, I would have been like, I could keep doing this.
Yeah.
But I needed a challenge, and I got it. I went to Alaska with unions and major stuff with Dan Sullivan and political stuff, and it was in 18 months in Alaska. I got to the 18-month point, council changed, and the owner of GovHR, her name is Joellen, right? Joellen, she worked with me up there a little bit, so I know her pretty well. She's the CEO and the owner of GovHR. She said, Scott, you don't want to go to Seward. I said, what? And my wife's uncle lived there 35 years, and all I heard about was fishing and hunting and world-class outdoors, you know, glaciers and kayaking on the ocean. And so I didn't take her advice. And they got right up to the point with the new council, and I was the 5th person in 2018 that was the city manager of Seward. And at almost the 2-year mark, they had a guarantee on their recruitment, and the council members that were seated are like, it's time to use our free search again. And I had done incredible things there and contributions, and I loved it, and I got tossed out again. So I mean, when I say look up Joseph's thing, it's really compelling to give your heart and soul and make things great. Yeah. And I have staffs. I still have most of the staff people that have worked for me. They tell my wife, Scott's the best boss I've ever had. And my wife's like, what are you doing with these people? How come they say that? And I care about my people. I care about things being right. I care about integrity. It's really hard to be in this role and try to make them tote that line when you got people that don't care about that. Yeah. And I think that's why I'm here. It's like it's almost like I have PTSD. I was in the Navy. I've been deployed overseas. I've been to places in Russia in the 1996, 98. Yeah. Places like Lithuania, Bosnia, places that you don't want to go, right? And so I have friends that were killed, and I have every day that I am here and try to make a difference. And when I was at Bethesda, I worked on 4 presidents. I've worked on everybody in Congress and the Senate, because we're at Bethesda at the Naval Hospital before Walter Reed closed.
Yeah.
I've worked with some of the most notable people in the country, and they're just a patient, and I'm just helping them, right? And I have been really kind of beat up, and my PTSD isn't from being deployed, it's from counsel people and being mistreated and doing your job right.
Wow.
And I think that's why I finally am speaking to you, because it's painful to relocate, and your spouse has got, concerned about, are we ever going to buy a house?
Mm-hmm.
How come this, is this something you're doing? It's like, maybe it is something I'm doing, because I'm like, I cannot be unethical and lie. That's why the interview was painful.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there thinking, I don't want to be any part of this, because it's not forthcoming in what we do.
Yeah.
That's who I am. I don't know if that's a flaw. It's obviously a flaw to be in this role and not, I have recruiters, I have mayors, I have tons of people that know Scott did what he should have done, and then he's not here anymore because of politics. And that's really part of being a manager, being a contract employee. It's their right to give me that and say, here you go, but just because you get some severance, that doesn't cover having to find a new job, having to move to a new community. I mean, you take these jobs on, even if I was in Kansas City, there's not a lot of cities that are gonna have an opening with the aptitude to just stay there.
Right. And that doesn't fix the things you were concerned about either.
And then at the end of the day, my heart is in service. Like they asked me in Seward, right? Seward has harbors, 1.5 million visitors on the cruise ships.
Mm.
They asked me who my most important staff member was, right? And I'm like, wow, that's like asking me who my favorite kid is. I don't do that.
Mm.
And this was someone, in the state that's a pretty big deal. And I looked at them and I said, it's Dave, our janitor. And they looked at me and they said, what? I said, yeah, because when Dave doesn't have the women's bathroom cleaned by 7:30, 8 o'clock a.m., I get 10 or 15 phone calls. When the ice isn't cleared, it's Alaska. When there's ice and it's not salted, I get 10 or 15 phone calls.
Wow.
Every person in our organization matters, and how they treat the customers and the citizens matters. And that's SGR, Ron Hollyfield. I've been, at Municipal League in Colorado. My friend and I had lunch. We helped him carry stuff to his car. He wrote a book called Fourth Dimensional Leadership.
Mm-hmm.
It has to matter. It has to be about integrity. It has to be about bettering things. And I don't know, I have a lot of passion about this.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I haven't been able to find that place where it's like, do what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
If you were my neighbor and I
Mhm.
trust you and you're elected to my city council, I would have a private conversation with you and I would say, just sit there and observe for 6 months. Learn your role, ask me questions. I'm here to help you. I'm here to educate, but let us make you look good. Go to the ribbon cuttings. Take all the credit as an elected person. We don't want the credit. We just want to serve.
Yeah.
And when you have that kind of people running your organization, great things happen. And I've been in those places where great things happen.
Just wasn't here.
It's a lot of places. It's a lot of places are in fear of change.
Yeah.
And don't embrace their team, right? Like even here in Macon, all of those people that work for the city are my staff. Some of them have some correctable, maybe. Some of them, the one I had issues with is already 30-year vested, could walk away. And I tried to say, hey, this person needs to be removed because it's making the whole thing toxic. Yeah. And why they support someone like that, I don't know. I can't explain that to you, but I'm not a CEO and this isn't a private business and I can't just take them out.
Right.
If it was, I would do that. Absolutely. So that's me. One of the crazy things in Seward, Alaska was good for me because it's so small. I would be sitting in my office and I get a knock on the door and I look over and it's Dan Sullivan and he's unannounced. He shows up in my office because it's small. It's on the road system. He's like, hey, is Stacy available? Julie and I want to go to breakfast. What? So I have to clear my schedule. I had an assistant there, so my assistant's like, oh. So we come back from breakfast and guess what? I'm meeting with the Coast Guard people, and he was in charge of the finance committee for the U.S. Senate, right? He's in charge of the appropriations committee. So he goes, do you mind if I sit in on this meeting? And I'm like, Oh, sure, I don't mind, but the lieutenant commander of the Coast Guard that was in charge of the Mustang and the ship, he just looks at me like, what is Dan doing at this meeting? And all of a sudden, Dan comes in, he's looking at, they wanted a fast ship, right? They wanted a fast ship in Seward, because we had this little tiny boat, and they needed, it's the furthest northern port that doesn't freeze in.
Yeah.
They wanted to have a fast frigate, and all the shoreside improvements for 200 people and their families are gonna move to Seward, and he's like, hey, we just got you $33.5 million. And council, everybody's looking at me like, how did that happen? It's being in the right place at the right time and facilitating those interpersonal relationships to make those things happen.
Yeah.
And so he gets all the credit, but it's like those things happen for a reason. This week, they just announced that they just opened up and got an icebreaker. That's a huge deal for the United States in the Arctic. So, like, I still follow them and I still communicate with them, and it's like you don't get things done in this work without having solid personal relationships.
Yeah.
And I'm new to Missouri, and I don't know if I'll stay in Missouri.
Mhm.
I have to go where I can find a job,
Right.
but I have a ton of passion about what I do. And it's unfortunate that short, I mean, it's kind of good that it's short because I wasn't a good fit for them, and it wasn't healthy for me to be in that situation either.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody could argue against your passion. It's very clear. The fact that you still keep up with and know the things about the places you've been is so impressive.
It's crazy because my kids all have like crazier stuff than me. My daughter, she went to Redlands University. That's where GIS Esri is based out of there. So she like interned for the McCain Institute and was
Oh
doing
my
briefs
gosh.
on the you know, at the White House and at the
Very successful family.
and now she's out doing archaeology
Oh
and I'm
my
like
gosh.
like I don't know. I think a lot of that's a work ethic
Yeah.
and a thing about, you know, your integrity and how you treat people,
Oh,
how you
100%.
value everybody.
It gets you far. It gets you a lot.
It's unfortunate that I have to be talking to you. It's unfortunate for me that I couldn't see some of those red flags. I like to believe, I'm an optimist, that, hey, if you give something your best and you put some work into it, it can change.
Yeah.
The politics of local government is challenging.
Yeah. And it's supposed to be a team effort, so
Yeah.
if you have one person tugging, I mean,
Yeah.
you're giving proposals and things.
That's
and if they're all,
my council and my mayor and my
Yeah.
staff and my community now. And it's like, you have to believe that, but it's a team sport.
Right.
Yes.
You don't win the Super Bowl by having an owner that treats people inappropriately.
And the whole team wasn't playing.
Yeah, and it's hard. That's what I think I am drawn to come to places like this because with the training and the mentoring, you can get there.
Right.
And I think I'm drawn to that. And unfortunately, the last couple I've never really gone somewhere after Monument where it's like, wow, everything is run and tidy and things are good. And I don't know if there's a lot of places out there like that.
Probably.
So anyway, you saw the passion a little bit.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing
Did
that.
you have anything else? you wanted to
A
ask?
couple more things if that's okay, and then Steph, I'll turn it back to you if you.
Yeah,
have
I'm sorry.
anything
Is
to
it turned into long?
No, I'm not. I have nowhere else to be, so if
Yeah,
you're
no,
good, we're good.
Okay. You've mentioned, you made a couple analogies to the NFL a couple times. I assume you're a football guy, so I'll make one back to you,
Alrighty.
just in case other wordings of this question may be tough to answer. The city of Macon seems very top-heavy, things coming from up top, decisions coming from up top, without a lot of room for discussion or other perspectives, which leads me to ask, is the city of Macon like the Dallas Cowboys?
I don't know what that means, but you seem to.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good analogy.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
I'll have to have him explain that to me later. I'm
Did
very
you
curious.
feel, during
I-
your time with the city of Macon, did you feel like you were able to fulfill your job's responsibilities?
Absolutely not.
Did you feel that decisions were made for you?
I really didn't have the ability to even contribute to changing decisions.
Mm.
I think, like I talked about mentoring and educating your council, I don't think that the mayors even had that opportunity.
Mm.
Does that,
Yes.
like I kind of hold true to the city clerk is a very important key piece to that. And I think your issues are the same as my issues, and that's supported by the mayor, so. until those are changed.
Yeah.
I don't see anybody being able to do much without that being different. I think if I was here and those individuals were not the staff that I have, we could have done greatness.
Of course.
And that's really what attracted me here, was seeing their deficiencies and the
Yeah.
issues that I could address, that I couldn't address them.
So,
I mean, I guess you could push and scream and act like a child, right? That's
Sure.
not professional of me, and I'm not gonna do that.
no, of course not. Just had it.
I mean, ultimately, I would say everywhere I've lived and been involved, I still want those places to be great.
Sure.
You know, and I don't wanna see them not move forward and get out of their difficulties.
Do you feel that those making decisions, who we've either alluded to or said, have ulterior motives other than growth and well-being of the city?
Yeah, I don't wanna answer that. I don't know.
Perfect. That's more of a,
I don't know.
perfect.
Can't
I haven't been
tell.
here that long to see that.
Know the intentions.
Do you feel that actions taken?
I hope not.
Of course, that's always the hope. Fact, we hope your answer was no. You know?
Right.
But it wasn't. We can. Do you think that actions taken by the city in recent months have been, or even in your time with Macon entirely, have led to any possibility or any tangible evidence of growth or improvement?
I think there's people in staff and on the council that see they need to update their process. They need to make things digital. They need to have training for their staff. Your inspector, he's a great, he gives a lot of effort. He's very dedicated. He's not certified. He's not qualified. They hired him. He's really, and they don't support him. They do not. So I sent him to the floodplain. The floodplain management stuff for the city of Macon is from 2001. It's out of compliance. So I sent him to, the training was free. They paid for his lodging and his travel and his meals, and he went to the class, and the state director knows this now. And so she's working very hard with them, treating them like they're a new member community to the FEMA floodplain stuff, because it's so bad.
Wow.
Buildings are built in floodplains that don't have documents. They don't have, the $30,000 to $50,000 funds they get when there's an incident. They don't qualify because they're not in compliance. So if you have something happen here like it did in Texas, whose fault is that? Well, ultimately that would be my fault if I was still here, and I was trying to get that trained, and I requested him and the state director to come present to the council, because I don't think myself and the inspector tell him that. They might still say no. These aren't things we want to vote yes or no on. These are mandates that they're not complying in. So he's still there. He came by to see me yesterday. I feel bad, like some of these people, I feel like there could be retaliation if they speak out, right? I don't know what the situation was with the employee last year, but it didn't sound good from what I heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what we want. We want to enable people to grow. I've had people, some of my assistant city managers, some of the people of my staffs that are now city managers. One runs the Alaska Interpool Risk Sharing Agency, Brennan Hickok. He's the head guy. He came to me. He said, "Scott, I gotta take a job offer," and he told me. I was like, "Good for you," right? I did not want to lose him. Phenomenal. He's got a great job, important job, and he's happy. To me, that's success.
Yeah. Growth.
I love success.
Absolutely. I have one from our meeting, and then I'll turn it back over to the staff. When it comes to public comment, Was the city really legally advised to disable Facebook comments on all their posts?
So here, I don't know if they were or not, but I could tell you that I talked to the town attorney, city attorney twice. He does prosecution. The league, the municipal league, they actually have Nathan, he's phenomenal. And I talked to him and he said my predecessor would call him 5 to 6 to 7 times a week. But the city attorney and contract, I never had, honestly, I think that I don't have a law degree. I haven't been in Missouri and I don't know the statutes like I do other states I've been in for several years. I don't think I would have taken an answer for him on municipal law issues that I would have not asked Nathan's team about if I had those challenges, if I didn't know the answers.
Okay.
No.
So I would highly doubt they even have spoken to their attorney. They don't. He told me he doesn't need to come to meetings. He told me that we're like a small corporation and we're like a little tiny, he does prosecution for the city. So, I mean, I've been in controversial cities where they fired some of the best attorneys in the state and then hired a yes person. I mean, that's, unfortunately in the municipal management, some communities just want a yes person in this seat. And that's not good. So don't hire someone certified, someone competent that's gonna be honest and tell you what needs to be fixed. That's why people like me keep shifting seats. And I wanna come in and I wanna provide that professional betterment to make things compliant and excellent and make the city grow and make it. That's my skill set. That's what I have experience in.
But you can't do that alone.
That's not always. I mean, I know people every day in the country that are displaced. It's crazy. You could just pull up city manager jobs, and most of the places don't pay us what our markets are.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised what city municipal managers and staff make. In most of your bigger cities, they make $350 to $500K. I myself haven't ever been over that, into that 200-300, but like my last county, I was paid $125, and they said that they thought that was ridiculous. I was getting paid that much, and then the guy who replaced me that had the same credentials as me was making $180. And the rest of the staff are deficient, right? So for me, it'd be hard to take a job with the pay that has such discrepancy with your team, because like I said, this is a team sport,
Right.
and I would fight to get my team where they should be.